I started a law firm in the year 2000 called IndusLaw. It went on to become one of the largest law firms in India. The startup is called RuleZero. That's a company. So we manage cap tables for a bunch of companies. We manage ESOP for a bunch of companies. This includes companies like CRED, Upstox, Big Basket.
Like a one-liner, what problem are you solving?
Yeah.
Private company industry in India is complex and disorganized. The idea ultimately is to organize the private market.
How much money do lawyers make on an average?
Litigation is a place where you make most money. Good litigation lawyer can make.
So has there been an instance regarding your cases where you have faced pressure from powerful ministers, business magnates, or gangsters?
Only once, actually.
Only once.
Tell us that story.
Yeah, so it was a very funny story. He said, I know where your wife works. I know which school your son goes to. You are a middle class guy. Why are you doing this? Even if the absolute truth comes out, there is nobody who is going to believe that that is the truth.
Someone I really look up to once told me that we don't pay bribes to get ahead, we pay bribes to make sure we don't get left behind.
See, if you focus on what you've got and don't worry about whether the other person got a good deal or not, you will always be in a good place. Firstly, congratulations on what you guys are doing. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah.
It's a great experience for whoever comes on the podcast.
Yeah.
And great learning for you guys too. And
correct.
really good stuff what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we usually start this podcast off with the guests introducing themselves. So tell me what you do, what you like doing. Who are you?
So my name is Srinivas Katta. I'm a lawyer by training. I started a law firm in the year 2000 called IndusLaw. It went on to become one of the largest law firms in India. In 2019, I just got bored doing what I was, so I promoted a tech startup called RuleZero with a co-founder of mine. The idea was to democratize various matters relating to shareholding and share transfers and stuff like that.
Okay.
We've also set up a fund that does liquidity for employees of companies, liquidity for options. I'm pretty active in my wife's school because I'm passionate about education. She runs a K-12 school. So these are three things which I broadly do.
Okay.
Okay.
Apart from a bunch of other businesses I'm actively involved in, but my full-time role is really with my tech startup.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So what inspired you to pursue a career in law initially?
See, when we went to college, there were only three things, a lawyer, doctor, engineer.
Yeah.
Nobody could think beyond that. I come from a family of lawyers.
Okay.
My dad's a lawyer, my grandfather's a judge. So growing up, I was thinking of either a career in law or chartered accountancy. And then came along National Law School.
Okay.
We were among the first batches. I applied, I got in, and I joined.
Okay.
It was not something which was extremely conscious process the way it is today. There were not too many choices those days, at least for kids in India.
Yeah.
So I just went with what I knew,
Okay.
if you ask me.
Is the choice thing, is it still happening or has it changed?
It's changed substantially, right? I mean, you don't think of only engineering, law, or
Yeah.
medicine, right? You think of a lot more things. I love the fact that a lot of kids take gap years after the 12th. I'm a big fan of a gap year.
Yeah.
But what I like to see kids doing is decide what they want to do, get admissions into college, and then figure out what they want to do in that 1 year. That 1 year must be a period of learning outside of school.
Okay.
Okay.
So I met, I really liked what I saw with one particular kid. Brinda Shishir and I, my wife's son and I had gone to the Andamans to do a diving trip, and I met a friend's son. He was a diving instructor there.
Okay.
He's a 19-year-old kid. I was wondering what he was up to. I thought it was awkward to ask, so I didn't. And then his father happened to be there too. So when we were casually chatting, he said he's gone to Stanford, but decided to take a gap year and become a dive master in that 1 year.
Yeah.
I thought that was absolutely fabulous because it teaches you so many things that he's doing something very productive in that gap year.
Yeah.
He's learning discipline, he's learning hard work, he's
Humble.
learning how to be organized,
Yeah.
how to be humble, and the importance of humility.
Yeah.
It's massive
Yeah.
life lessons in that 1 year. So everybody who asks me, I always tell them that gap year is good, but it shouldn't be that in that year you're figuring out what college you're going to join. You're wasted that year and you're stressed out. Your friends are in college already. They're all doing good stuff, and you don't know where you're going. So it's not exactly a great place to be in. But if you've got into college already, you've taken your admission, you know what you're doing, and then that 1 year is a year of learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
You travel, you meet people, you work, you earn your living in that
Yeah.
1 year. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Do you recommend us to do it?
Absolutely. But so long as you know which college you've got into,
Okay.
you tell the college that you're deferring your admission by a year.
Okay.
That year is enjoyable when you're in that position. The kids I've seen who are figuring out which college they want to go to in the gap year, they are a little stressed out. And you don't learn much and you're wasted that year also.
Yeah. So as you mentioned earlier, you're actively working on your startup. So what is your startup called and what does it really do?
The startup is called RuleZero. That's the company.
Okay.
The product is called Hissa. We do three things there. One is we manage cap tables for private companies.
Yeah.
Cap tables for private startups is extremely complicated because each investor has a different category of shares. The rights are different. So, putting all the data together is complex. Compliance is complex.
Okay.
We manage ESOP plans for companies, right from plan design, how many options you give to each employee, etc., etc. We plan it. And then companies can manage the entire ESOP program on our tech platform.
Okay.
Earlier, all ESOP plans would be managed on Excel sheets. Every employee has his own grant date, grant terms, etc. It was extremely messy. So everything is done on the platform now. And the third thing we have is a fund which does liquidity for employees.
Okay.
Okay. So I want to know how you founded this or co-founded this, and why you did that. What problem? I want you to give me like a one-liner. What problem are you solving?
Yeah.
So the private company industry in India is complex and disorganized.
Okay.
So what we were trying to do is democratize stuff. There is there's information asymmetry, there's lack of transparency, governance is poor. So we wanted to do something where the industry gets more organized, and we picked two problems in the beginning, and now the third one which we are trying to solve. The idea ultimately is to organize the private market.
Okay.
Right.
So as a corporate lawyer, how do you think the government can tackle such issues on a global level? Or it is a pan-India
So
level?
let me just go back to Arnav's other question, why I did this.
Okay.
I simply got bored doing what I was because being a corporate lawyer is, when you do transactions day in and day out, it's one is not very different from the other. And over a period of time, you'd have seen almost everything. The key thing for me in any business I'm involved in is I must enjoy what I'm doing and I must like my co-founders. Both of them are equally important for me. One without the other is it ceases to be fun. See, a lot of money to be made. Money is not the driving factor in many of these things. It's when you enjoy going into work and solve complex problems without worrying too much about how much money you make out of that, it's a lot of fun. And your ability to solve problems is so much better when you're not overly focused on money. You need to make money for your investors. You need to make money for your team members. All of that is important. But that is a consequence of building a good business.
Yeah.
So when you look at it as a consequence of building a good business, it's a lot more fun. And my co-founder is somebody I've known for 20 years. My co-founders at IndusLaw are all my classmates from law school.
Oh.
We went to school together and we started that company. The tech business. The school. I'm very involved with my wife. Then there are two other companies I'm actively involved in. Again, really close friends. So for me, both of them are extremely important.
Okay.
Whom I'm partnering with and what are the work I'm doing.
Okay. So I want to ask you a question, right? This is like everyone tells me, bro, don't co-found your company with a friend or someone who's very close to you. What is you have co-founded a lot of companies with your friends? What you're saying, with a lot of close friends.
Every business.
Every single business.
Yes.
So, I mean, what are the consequences? What are the benefits and the disadvantages of doing such things?
See, it a lot depends on your personality. Since I don't overly think about... See, the problem arises in any partnership when one believes that they've contributed more than the other. So I've contributed more than you. So my equity should be different from yours.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. In quite a few scenarios, there is truth in that statement, but more often than not, it's what you say in Hindi, 19 बीस का फर्क है.
हाँ.
Right? So, okay, I may have contributed more, I may have contributed less, but if you overly focus on that, you will always have complications in your partnership. Whereas if you recognize that, the other person will contribute more in some areas, you will contribute more in the others, and it's you won't think about it too much.
Yeah.
The moment you start focusing on that, your friendships will get damaged. So a lot of people will tell you don't be business partner with your friends.
Correct.
But if you're okay to leave stuff, see, the thing is, oftentimes we think that we've contributed more, but a third party may not look at things the same way. Your partner may think he's contributing more. You think you're contributing more. The truth is always somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
If you're willing to let go of that issue, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. This is exactly one of like my second podcast guest, Avinash Rao. He said the exact same thing to me. If you don't look at how much each person has contributed, you'll have more fun, you'll enjoy the process, and eventually lead to a better outcome. Right? But this type of stuff needs to be discussed beforehand.
I have not discussed any of this with my co-founders. In law school, there were 3 guys who wanted to start a firm. I was working elsewhere, and I liked these 3 guys, so I said we'll start together. There was no discussion on who does
Who's
what.
doing what?
Yeah.
There's no discussion on equity. We just said we'll go
Oh,
equally
30,
between all 4 of us.
30%.
It was done. In my wife's business, so it doesn't matter. I don't own any equity, and it's fairly irrelevant to me. And in my tech startup, I told my co-founder thinks this absolutely the same way.
Yeah.
So I just told him, IndusLaw is going to contribute certain amount of capital and allow us to use their offices, help us with go-to-market and things like that. I put a proposal on the table. He accepted it in 5 seconds. Okay, things have not always worked out, but we've always had conversations and sorted it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The communication is very important.
Conversations. You can always have conversations and sort things out. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. I mean, it's fine. You can always move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you hold on and say that it's not working out for me, but I want more equity, you're only increasing conflict and you're destroying a business.
Yeah.
Correct.
Makes sense.
Okay,
Totally
so
right.
I have a good friend. He had a partnership with another friend of his. It was not working well for him. So I said, why don't you just walk away? He said, fine, let me think about it. And he came back and said, what should I negotiate with my partner? We both discussed that he should negotiate anything except whatever he gives. And if he gives nothing, you accept that you get nothing. So he surrendered his shares and started a new business altogether. This is my friend Rishi Sridhar. So he just walked away from his equity in that company. And the new company he's set up is much larger than the old company already.
Yeah.
So what he left on the table was valuable, but what
What
he's
he
made is
created?
much more valuable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
So
is-
what do you care about? Whether the other guy got more or what you made out of life. See, if you focus on what you've got and don't worry about whether the other person got a good deal or not, you will always be in a good place. This has worked for me. Okay, it's worked more fairly to the other guy, but that's life. If you always focus on what you are getting out of any deal, any transaction, any partnership, any relationship, you got what you wanted.
Yeah.
Why do you want to think about what the other guy made or the other woman made or the other friend made? It's fairly irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So when you have less conflict, you
Yeah.
achieve a lot more.
Okay. So as you mentioned earlier, HISA helps other startups. So who are some startups who have you have helped, and how have you helped them?
So we manage cap tables for a bunch of companies. We manage ESOP for a bunch of companies. This includes companies like CRED, Upstox, Big Basket, Moneyview, Netcore, Chai Point, 1MG, a whole bunch of companies. Their ESOP we manage for them.
Okay.
So from our fund, we've just done liquidity for a company called Miko. We gave liquidity to employees of Miko. Miko is an educational companion robot company, services the US market. So, a lot of these companies, what happens is 5-6 years into the journey, a little bit of tiredness starts coming in because, it's always stressful to build a startup, right? You're solving problems day in and day out.
Yeah.
So a little bit of cash in the employees' pockets is great for morale.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Let's go back to the early stages of your career. You founded one of India's largest law firms, IndusLaw.
That's right.
right? How did you get there? How did you found this? How did you found this law firm?
So I was working in my father's law firm when I
Yeah.
passed out of law school in '96.
Mm-hmm.
I worked there for 2 years, and somewhere along the way, I realized that if I do well in that firm and grow, people will say he's the son of a partner.
Yeah.
He's bound to get opportunities.
Mm.
If I do badly, people are going to say, partner ka bacha hai, fir bhi he messed up.
Yeah.
Right? So it was a no-win situation for me. I do well, I don't get credit. I do badly, I get a lot of brickbats.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
said, this is just not worth it. And three of my friends were starting a firm together. I said, I'll join in. We just jumped in. When we started the firm, there was not much thought, to be honest, about what we were doing.
Yeah.
And I went to a firm which had done a little bit of corporate work, so I became a corporate lawyer. The other guys, two of the guys didn't have any corporate experience, so they went into litigation. And the fourth guy, we said, there need to be two people in corporate, so he started doing corporate work. And first 1 year was hardly any work. We didn't know how to we didn't look at the law firm as a business.
Okay.
We looked at it as a profession, and we built it as a profession. So the focus was extremely on work and nothing more. So whatever little work we got, which were all referrals, we managed to execute well. Then we had a few people who just took a liking for us, and they started referring a lot of work to us.
Oh, okay.
These were senior partners in firms like Deloitte.
Oh.
So there were a couple of people who just took a great liking for us, and
Yeah.
because they liked us, they referred work to us. One was this guy called, this partner called Lakshmi Narayanan, and the other's a partner called Udayan Sen.
Yeah.
So we didn't know. I'd never met either of them before we started IndusLaw. They happened to know my father, but that was fairly irrelevant to them.
Yeah.
They just liked both of us who went to meet them, and they started referring work to us. And we built from there.
Okay.
So 2008-9, we started thinking that this should become an enterprise now. Around 2010, we made the call that we will think like an enterprise now.
Okay.
And around 2010, we started growing.
Oh, okay.
Till then, it was just a bunch of lawyers
Bunch
doing
of
work
lawyers
Yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah.
2010, we became an enterprise. Started becoming an enterprise.
Okay. So, what are some key qualities a lawyer must have?
So that's a tough one because it depends on the field you are in. But law has become like any other profession or job or whatever you want to call it. There are a bunch of people who need technical skills. There are people who need management skills. There are people who need client relationship skills. They need people who need business development skills. So every firm will have a bunch of people good at different things.
Yeah.
So it's no different from any other enterprise today in that sense, except the key difference between a law firm and any other business is in any other business you have a one or two offerings, right? I mean, you take a Apple, they make phones.
Yeah.
You take Microsoft, they make
Software,
10 different kinds of software. It's 10 different kinds of software.
Yes.
Okay, there's a team which develops it, there's a team which tests it, markets it, researches, whatever, right?
Yeah.
They're all looking at the same North Pole or the same North Star. Whereas in a law firm, every single person is billing individually and bringing in revenues. So there are multiple small projects that you do. So that creates its own complications in terms of human relationships. It creates weird competition among people within the firm as opposed to competing outside. You're competing outside, but you're also competing inside the
Inside,
firm.
yeah.
So that creates its own complexity to deal with. I would say one of the reasons which made me stop being a lawyer was also that a lot of lawyers end up becoming cynical.
Yeah.
Cynical as in?
Cynical as in, you see a lot of,
Things,
not so
yeah.
good things in life. So, you're all the time, you're trained to think of what can go wrong. You're not trained to think about what are the good
Right,
things
yeah.
which
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
happen. So that has its own, impact on your mind. I've worked very, very consciously not to become cynical over the years. So at some point, I probably knew that I would not do this for too long. I mean, I wouldn't do it till I'm 60 or 65. A lot of lawyers go on till 70, 75, 80 also. But I think I knew very early that I won't be one of those people who will last till I'm even 60.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But ultimately, I don't think I became a cynical individual.
Yeah.
The reason I quit was I just got bored.
Okay.
Okay. Why did you get both though?
It's just doing the
too
same
repetitive?
thing. It's too repetitive.
Okay.
Too repetitive. And building a services business of that kind is not something which I find too exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so for our viewers, can you just explain how a law firm works, how it generates revenue, how do you guys sustain over the years, and how does it scale up from being like a small firm to something like IndusLaw?
See, it's like it's a services business at the end of the day. You have multiple departments within that firm. The departments are really, if you look at the offerings, you have one team which handles capital markets work. That's IPOs. Another team which does M&A, which is acquisitions, private equity, venture capital, real estate, litigation. IP, technology, media, and telecom advisory, fraud investigation, employment. There are probably 50 different fields like that if you go in globally, and each firm makes its bet on different aspects of that. IndusLaw got built because of the venture capital ecosystem. Bangalore became the hub, right? And in Bangalore there were no other firms at that time, so it was being in the right place at the right time at many levels, because we were the only firm in Bangalore that was headquartered in Bangalore. So if you look at the law firms in India and Bangalore are large today, but when you go back to 2007-8, when the entire VC industry was growing, the national firms were not so large in India, in Bangalore. And even those that were large were not focused on VC. And we also happened to work closely with the first 2-3 venture capital firms that got set up. And as far as the partners there were concerned, they were working with the senior people in this firm. So I said, okay, we can work with these guys to, they also need to learn how the ecosystem needs to grow. We also need to learn. So the firm got built out of there. And other than that, you have a business. Not, I wouldn't call it a business development team. It's a practice development team. We have a finance team. We have a admin support team. It's like any other business or any other enterprise. Let me not use the word business. It's any other enterprise. It's no different from any other enterprise. Just that there'll be some specific aspects that are different. You'll have complex, arrangements on, how the team members are paid. So you need to have a strong finance department. Practice development is, lawyers are restricted from advertising. So there are very limited things that you can do to go and meet people and win clients. So every law firm will have a sophisticated way of doing this. A lot of it is partner-led, but it's no different from any other enterprise. So you set targets for 3 to 5 years, and you have goals for the immediate year. You have a 3 to 5 year target. You have a 1 year target, and you build it like any other enterprise.
So as you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of lawyers follow a path that leads into a wrong path. So have you ever?
It's not a wrong path. What I would say is you see, ultimately when the clients come to you, the clients expect, it depends on the client's expectation, right? You look at the venture capital funds, largely they are, among the more ethical people. They want to, most venture capital funds want to make money along with the company making money. So the way they look at agreements, the way they look at structures, the way they look at governance is very easy for people like us, because, I can relate to a way a good venture capital fund thinks. You look at litigation, you're at, loggerheads with somebody, or fighting with somebody. You look at real estate, you're doing a transaction where, there could be an unethical seller. So if you have an unethical seller or an unethical buyer, your mind also needs to work towards addressing those risks and issues, right? So venture capital is one of those areas where, and when you work on stuff like governance, a lot of advisory work, you don't have those conflicts. When you do M&A, you're putting money into somebody else's pocket. When you do venture capital investing or a private equity investing, you're putting money into the company for growth. A little bit of money goes into somebody else's pocket. So when there's money moving from one person's pocket to another person's pocket, there's always a certain level of risk which comes in. But when the money is going into a business to build that business, that conflict is not there. The issues are very different. So depending on the practice area you are involved in, you tend to see either the good side of people, or you tend to see a side of people which is like the greedy side, the selfish side, or the negative side. So luckily for me, the area I was working in, I got to see a lot more of the good side of people.
Okay.
Okay.
That probably helped me in not becoming cynical.
Yeah.
Or I probably, sometimes I think I chose this area because I knew I wouldn't be cynical if I get
Yeah.
into this area. It's very hard to go back and think how I made these choices 16, 17 years ago.
Okay.
At some level, it was like, you just go along and see what
Yeah.
happens. So it was well into the firm's journey that we decided that we are going to become an enterprise. It wasn't something we started with.
Okay.
In fact, one of the founders wasn't too excited about making this an enterprise, so he decided to move on. He said, this doesn't work for me. He left in 2012, 13,
Okay.
or 13, 14, sometime in that time period. He said, I don't want to be part of something so large. So he said, I'll do my own gig. So it's all part of life.
So has there been an instance regarding your cases where you have faced pressure from powerful ministers, business magnates, or gangsters? Given that you have high stakeholders.
No,
No?
only once actually.
Only once.
Tell us that story.
Yeah, so it was a very funny story. I had a friend, one of the most ethical guys I know, built some really good businesses,
Yeah.
but never made too much money for himself. He made decent money, not as much as somebody of his skill or caliber
yeah.
could have made, but he didn't care. He was quite happy about it. Then his co-founder decided to set up a business, and he decided to fund it. And all of us being friends, we said, okay, we'll all invest
Yeah.
whatever little money we can. Then that guy, for some reason, got into some bad habits, so to speak. And then to fund some of his habits, he went and did some private deal with some politician who he had a side deal on his shares.
Okay.
And he went and committed to him that we'll give you 100% of the shares if required. None of us were aware of it. And, then one thing led to the other. That guy started threatening my friend, who was a partner in that
Who
business.
invested in that?
So I remember meeting that guy in Ashoka Hotel,
Gangster
the gangster politician. And he said, you have to transfer your shares for free. I'm not giving you a choice. Then we said, no, we're not going to transfer the shares. And it was a tough 1 hour conversation, and we walked away. Then next day, the gangster's second in command called me, and he said, I know where your wife works. I know which school your son goes to. You are a middle class guy. Why are you doing this? So I just said, you know where my son goes to school, right? Since you already know, why are you asking me this? And we just walked away from there. So there was 1 week of stress. And then they called us and said, we'll give your capital back, you hand over the shares. So we just transferred the shares and walked away.
That's it. Company.
Yeah, but we all got our capital back, which was a good outcome.
Okay, that's still a good outcome.
It wasn't a bad outcome at
Yeah.
all. Then the other experiences, I've actually represented a gangster on a real estate deal. See, as a lawyer, one of the ethical questions or ethical principles is that I cannot refuse work.
Okay.
So you have a criminal lawyer who represents the biggest gangsters in the country, right?
Yeah.
It's his duty to represent those gangsters. He can't refuse work from them. I cannot refuse work from any gangster. So let's say he wants to sell some property or buy some property. So long as I am not part of anything unethical which goes on in that transaction,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting, encouraging, condoning, or hiding anything unethical. I can't say I will not handle that work.
Okay.
So this guy was entering into a joint venture with among the largest real estate developers in the country. It was a negotiation on a contract. And he was not using strong arm in that contract. If he was using strong arm and I'm still involved in it, then it's
Yeah,
wrong.
then it's wrong.
But this was a regular real estate deal between one gangster and a powerful guy.
Okay.
It was not a not so powerful guy. So that was a fun deal.
Yeah, there was no killing, nothing like that.
Nothing. I mean, there was no threat of anything.
Yeah.
In fact, that the real estate developer was acting dirty. This guy was not responding.
Okay.
So he said, I don't want to use any dirty
yeah.
tricks.
Wow.
And I've also represented one of the most powerful ministers in this state on some real estate transactions. That was again very weird, where he overpaid. He overpaid because the unions had to be settled. There were unions in that company that he was
pressure
buying.
groups.
So I was asking him, I actually asked him, I said, the law requires you to pay, we did the workings in that case, about 18 months salary for every workman. because the law says if you want to let go of people
Yeah,
when
you
you're
can't lay
you know,
off them.
closing the company, there's a compensation which has to be calculated. In this case, it was working out about 18 months salary for on average. He actually, I think, paid 7-8 years salary for each of those guys
Oh.
to
That's
to
surprising.
settle that. No, he had a sweet deal on the sale of the company,
Okay.
but he calculated that he'll have to pay so much more. So I was asking him, how come you're paying so much to get this transaction done?
Yeah.
He said, these are all poor workmen, right? And they're all at some level my constituency.
Yeah.
I can't fool around with these people. So I overpaid by a huge factor, right? 5 times, 6 times more than what they would have got.
Yeah. So they're happy.
Yeah, so there's so much you learn in when you get into the motivations of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot you learn.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who was this minister, if you don't mind mentioning his name?
It's not correct to
It's-
mention
okay,
it.
that's
so
confidential,
it's
yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about money. How much money do lawyers make on an average? So from associates and like
So
every
it
single-
depends, if you're in litigation,
Yeah.
you start very low. In Chennai, for instance, I mean, I don't know how it is today, but when I passed out of law school, if you join a litigation firm, you'll make enough money to buy 2 coffees a day. Okay, so
Okay.
that's the amount of salary you get.
Okay.
So, this is not coffee in Starbucks. It's
It's
coffee in
some
a
local-
Darshini.
Yeah.
Okay, so those days coffee would probably cost you $2, so you'll get
Yeah.
enough money to
$5 a day.
$5 a day.
Yeah.
That's just some kind of internship. You have to pay for your own petrol,
Wow.
everything you have to do. Litigation in Bangalore was slightly better, but not substantially so. Corporate firms pay much more. Tier 1 firms would probably pay 15 lakhs a year for an associate
Okay.
fresh out of college. The top lawyers in this country, litigation is a place where you make most money.
Okay.
Corporate lawyers don't make as much money as litigation, but corporate firms where the founding partners tend to make a lot more money.
Okay.
But a good litigation lawyer can make 50 crores a year.
50 crores a year.
Yeah.
If you're like one of those managing partners or something.
No, this is
I've
the
seen.
litigation lawyers.
Okay.
Ah.
You're
So in
talking
basic
about the-
terms, what does litigation mean?
Litigation means we go to court to fight a dispute,
Okay.
or there's an arbitration.
Okay.
Corporate lawyers are just doing advisory or transactional work.
Back end
Okay.
work. And
It's
then
not back end. It's got nothing to do with litigation. When you're investing into a new business, or you're acquiring a company, or you're listing a
Compliance, yeah.
company, there's a ton of paperwork that needs to be managed.
okay, and you
That's
guys
what corporate lawyers do.
yeah.
So the litigation lawyers are the most well paid on an individual basis.
Okay.
The guys who'll charge you 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs per appearance. The appearance may last an hour, 2 hours in the Supreme Court. But these guys are so good at what they do. It's unbelievable.
Okay.
The some of the stories you'll hear. Again, I don't want to take names, but this is one of my favorite stories. One of the top litigation lawyers in India, one of the smartest guys I know. A friend of mine was briefing him.
Yeah.
He said, "You come to my hotel on Sunday evening to brief me," because he had flown into the city, and the most senior lawyers will not come into your office. You have to go and meet them.
Yeah.
There's a guy living in Delhi, obviously, so met him in the hotel. It was a file which was about 400, 500 pages. 6 o'clock, the briefing started. For 2-3 minutes, he heard this guy out, and then they started talking about life. For 2-3 hours, the guy just drank and enjoyed good food and great conversation. And somewhere along the way, this guy, for about 5-6 minutes, flipped through the paperwork. And at the end of that 3 hours, he just returned the file to him and said, "Your case is going to come up 2-3 months later, potentially. Whenever it comes up, previous two days before that, you call me and you give me the file at that time. Because I don't want to lose the file." So on the day of the hearing in the Supreme Court, the guy walks into the court 5 minutes late. The hearing has already started. The
Yeah.
briefing lawyer has already started arguing the matter. The senior counsel walks in and he tells the judge, "You may look at page 56 of that book." It's called a paper book,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's numbered sequentially. So though you have multiple annexures, etc., he said, "You please look at page 56." The lawyer was wondering what's going on because in his mind there was nothing in page 56.
Yeah.
So the judge opened page 56 because he's a senior guy, you
Yeah.
just listen to what he says, right? He says, "You may look at the second paragraph, line 5. Guy started reading line 5. In 2 minutes, the case was over.
Oh my.
So
Okay.
in that 5 minutes when he flipped through that paperwork, he's gone to the relevant page, read it, absorbed it, internalized it, and remembers it 3 months later. Now, every single day, there are 3, 4 cases like that they get briefed on, right? And the guy, it's that intuition you develop when you put in those 10,000 or way more than 10,000 hours, and you know which page it is. I've seen that in my own boss's cases. Large files. In 5 minutes, the guy opens the relevant page. That's the skill a great litigation lawyer brings.
Okay.
You all know who Arun Jaitley is, right? Arun Jaitley used to be a minister in the central cabinet in the first BJP government. He passed away.
Yeah.
There are some judgments which are 1,400 pages. The whole judgment is 1,400 pages. He will know every single line of that judgment. He will actually tell you, please turn to paragraph 630 of that judgment. Read line 6, your answer is there.
Photographic memory.
Absolutely photographic memory. And that comes because of effort. It doesn't come just like that. My boss was a real estate lawyer. In the 80s, you could ask him about any property in this city. I want to buy this property. He'll tell you don't buy it or buy it. He knows the title history of every single large property in the city, any large property.
Okay.
He spent his Saturdays and Sundays reading those files.
It's memorized.
It doesn't happen by accident. It's it's actually he lives and breathes the profession. So when they're reading with concentration all the time. They're picking up stuff from all over. It's just unbelievable. So, when you have that kind of skill, which has come from so much effort and hard work and discipline and sacrifice, it's
also, you develop photographic memory. You build it as like a skill. I thought it comes
Yeah,
like
it
happens.
happens like a birth skill.
It happens. It happens. So
Okay.
some of it's not that the best students become the top lawyers. There's not necessarily a correlation.
Got it.
So, what would be the most significant amount of money you have received for one single case? Ballpark number.
If you take a corporate lawyer, it could be anywhere from, corporate lawyers can make even up to 7-8 crores in a
Single case.
single matter, because matters go on for 1-2 years.
Yeah, it goes on.
Okay.
From,
And you have large teams which are working on it. A litigation lawyer can make much more than that. Because the hearings go on for much longer, and the top lawyers are charging you 15, 20, 25 lakhs per hearing.
Yeah.
When the stakes are high enough, you want these guys in your corner.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you founded IndusLaw almost 25 years ago, right?
2000.
2000, exact. So 25 years ago. How has law changed from 2000 to 2024?
So litigation hasn't changed. Litigation hasn't changed as much as the corporate world. In 2000, you had the concept of a corporate lawyer and a litigation lawyer. You're either a disputes lawyer or a non-disputes lawyer.
Yeah.
The term used was non-litigation lawyers those days. But today, corporate lawyers, like I said, there are multiple things. You're a telecom lawyer, you're a
Real estate
employment lawyer, you're a fraud investigation lawyer, you're a private equity lawyer, you're a venture capital lawyer. In venture capital, you represent funds or you represent companies. It's become extremely diverse, and more understanding the ecosystem, understanding business nuances is important. When we started practicing, you just need to know what the law was. But that's not enough today.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need to know a lot more. But it's a lot easier also because the access to information, processes is much more.
Okay.
Okay. What about like the work ethic? Has that changed? Because we see.
I think post-COVID, law firms are struggling a little more because the current generation, a lot of people are not willing to put in the hours that the pre-COVID
Laws used to
it
put,
used to work. So a typical lawyer is working on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your day ends at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the night, very often.
And no breaks. Just.
No, you get your breaks. You get your coffee breaks. You get your conversation breaks.
As in long day breaks, 24-hour breaks, like
No.
for a weekend break. No breaks as a
No
lawyer.
breaks like that.
So when I started my career, I would go into my father's office at 7:30 in the morning. I would open the door. I would lock the door at 10 o'clock in the night. And Saturdays would be working till 5:36. Sundays would be working from 1:30 to 5.
Okay. Work every single day.
Yeah, every single day. I probably took 4 days off a year, 5 days off a year in the first couple of years.
Now, we complain.
No, but I'll tell you, there's a big difference. There is a big difference between then and now. The big difference is, those days, there would be a lot of dumb work we would do. So, if I was going to a bit to the courts, so you go to the court, you're, taking your file from one bench to the other, getting it pushed. It's not like today. So there was a lot of dumb work we did. So in a 14, 16-hour day, how many hours did I spend really thinking? There would be some days when you've done 14 hours of thinking
Yeah.
work. But on average, you're probably doing 7 hours of thinking or 6 hours of thinking,
Yeah.
or maybe 8. But today, with so much of technology and support systems,
Yeah.
every single hour is spent
Okay.
on, intellectually thinking work, right? Because software does a lot of the, the grunt work, the routine
Okay.
work. So today, if you're putting in 8-9 hours of work, which is with intensity, that's hard work.
Yeah.
So you cannot compare today with 2000s. It's just not fair.
Yeah.
As you know, artificial intelligence is disrupting every industry. Do you think it's going to affect the law industry?
Already affected.
And how is that?
So there's so much of software available which to lawyers now, where everything was done manually earlier. 10 years ago, the most sophisticated piece of software a lawyer would use is called MS Word. Okay. Today, it's just so much of technology available on stuff that we do. So a lot of the technology we built, for example, if you're doing a financing for a
Yeah.
what do you call a Series F company, it would take an hour and a half to create the cap table.
Okay.
Because there are so many little things to work through, so much of detail to check. But that with software that you have will take 5 minutes today.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the legal system. This is something I've advocated about. I've spoken about this on social media, right? It's the RG car case. What's your opinion on this case?
See, it's rather unfortunate, and it's becoming like this for a lot of cases today. There's already a trial by media, right? So everybody has their own version of the truth about RG car case.
Yeah.
Now everybody believes that there is a grievous wrong, and everybody has an opinion on who has done that wrong. Now a large number of them may be true, but the reality is it is not the entire truth that anybody knows. Now whatever conclusion comes, whatever the courts hold, there will be a bunch of people who'll say that's not the truth. Even if the absolute truth comes out,
Yeah.
there is nobody who's going to believe that that is the truth. So that's a very unfortunate position we are in. It so badly undermines the judicial system, the police, etc. Right? I mean, there's so much noise being made today about why is there so much delay. It's investigating a case of that kind. You're going to put somebody behind bars. You might hang somebody. You need to be thorough about the work you do, whether it's the cops or the prosecutors or the courts, etc. We have all made the assumption and come to the conclusion that there is fraud in the system, that there is corruption in the system. So even if somebody is honest,
No one really knows.
you don't believe
Yeah,
it.
you don't know what's
And
actually.
let's assume that there is some corruption there for a minute, okay? Or at least some people are corrupt. The truth is, there are multiple versions of the truth in people's minds already.
Yeah.
So this is a no-win situation. It's an unfortunate case where this is going to come out badly no matter what.
Makes sense. So according to you, what's the most pressing legal issue in India right now?
There are multiple I can think of. I am a big fan of uniform laws, irrespective of caste and creed and religion, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. I'm a big fan of, it's the same piece of property you're dealing with. Now, if a Hindu family owns a property as opposed to a Muslim family owning the property, there's differences. If a Muslim gentleman dies or a Hindu gentleman dies, the way the property gets inherited is different. Adoption laws are different. If I'm a Hindu, the way I can adopt is very different from if I'm a Muslim, the way I can adopt. So, this is, if you ask me, this is unnecessary. And, this actually creates more divide, if at all. If you have uniformity in a lot of these things, some of the differences will actually die.
Okay.
That's one thing. The second issue is, delay in justice. You can't have 5, 10, 15 years, for justice. And also, the unfortunate truth is the rich can afford better lawyers. So their chances of success become so much better than the poor guy who can't afford a great lawyer. So the outcomes are very different. And this is not just about, one poor individual versus a rich individual. A small company versus a big company.
Yeah.
You have the same issues, right? So this to me is one of these unfortunate things which has happened in our country today. I think the third thing I would say is the way the law gets interpreted by authorities. Unfortunately, there's no uniformity.
Okay.
Different officers in different departments, when they're interpreting the same law, they go about interpreting it the same in whatever way they want, and then you land up in courts, and there is no fear that there is no accountability today. 30 years ago, if you write an order that was bad as an administrative authority, you would be worried about being pulled up by the courts. That fear seems to have gone away today. Because of there being no fear there, corruption goes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, I think, is another big issue that needs to be tackled.
Okay. And how do you think the Indian government can tackle this
Yeah.
issue?
That's a tough one. I think, first, I think the salaries that, the government employees, courts, judges make is just way too low.
Okay.
Okay, imagine, a top corporate lawyer can make, somebody with 5 years experience makes more than a Supreme Court judge.
Okay, but they also have privileges with it, right?
It's the difference is too minor. I mean, the difference in salary is too much. There are some privileges. What are the privileges? You're going to get pensions. A mid-level government officer or a mid-level judicial officer cannot afford to send his kids to a good private school.
Yeah, that makes
Okay, in the US, even if you can't afford great education, there are great government schools. You go to Europe, there are great government schools. So you don't have to worry about education. Healthcare support is so much more. So when you have those things in place, salary just becomes one of the factors. But in our system where education is not available, healthcare, access to good healthcare is not available, salaries are low, how do you expect integrity? I mean, it's all very nice for me to say that, this guy is being dishonest.
Yeah.
But the guy is probably taking a bribe because he's funding his
Family, yeah.
his mother's health bill or his son's education.
Correct.
Yeah, makes
And unfortunately, what happens is most people start being honest. Most people don't get into a government job wanting to be dishonest. Somewhere along the way, they take money,
Okay.
and that becomes a slippery slope.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it just becomes part of your DNA. And once it becomes part of your DNA, you forget how many crores you have and you just want to make more. It's just like, what we want in the private sector, as lawyers or, startup entrepreneurs or professionals or whatever you want to call us. We all forget how much wealth we already have and we try to make more. The same thing happens to these guys. If you increase their salaries by 10x or 15x, a lot of guys will not be dishonest. And the truth is, the price of corruption is way more than increasing the salaries by 10x.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
So
Imagine if 6% of your project cost is paying bribes.
Yeah, that's true. Like
It's insane.
In government-
Whereas, if a government official is getting 2.5 lakhs a month when he's got 10 years experience,
yeah.
there's not as much incentive to be corrupt.
Makes
But if the guy is making 80,000 rupees, I mean, imagine living in Bangalore city with a lakh of rupees. You cannot pay for your kids' education,
Okay.
for 2 children's education. And that is the starting point of corruption.
yeah.
See, it's all very nice to be judgmental about what's happening to people. But when you ignore the truth about why these people become corrupt,
Yeah.
it's very, very different. I've seen judges park their scooters in, there's a court hall, there's parking outside for their two-wheelers. A district magistrate who's 50 years old comes in a scooter to the court. He takes his scooter to his private chamber and leaves it there. Because if it's outside, somebody's cutting the tire, tearing the seat, is damaging the thing, because he's going to pass a bad order against him.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But things are slightly better now, but it needs to be so much better.
But how do we even increase their pays? Like, there are so many factors that play into this. We
Yeah.
are overpopulated. A lot of people in India don't pay taxes fairly. A lot of things happen.
That's another thing, right?
Yeah.
I always say this, corruption is in the system. It's not just in the government. You take, you walk down the road, pick up 100, of the 100 people you see, pick up 15 of them.
Yeah.
They're all in private sector today. Make them government employees. Will they become corrupt? If your answer is yes, that means there is a systemic problem.
Yes.
It's not just that there's a guy willing to pay a bribe. Why is he willing to pay a bribe? Very often it's because there's something wrong he's done. Okay, his paperwork is not 100% accurate. Everybody will say that they're clean and accurate, but the truth is not everybody is honest about the way they've done things. So, it's an unfortunate thing where India has just accepted corruption as a way of life today. You need somebody who will come in and, take some tough decisions. You tell the private sector, we'll increase your taxes by 6% or 7%, but there will be zero corruption. And you see what the answer is.
Okay.
And businesses will grow so much, so quickly, half your problems will be solved. But somebody needs to work out the math. Look, I'm being a little random here by just throwing numbers like 5%, 6%, etc. But the truth is, if somebody works out the math, looks at the quality of life of government servants, and how much they need to be paid, etc., it's a lot easier.
Makes sense. But
I'll just give a random example, right?
Yeah.
Private schools, good private schools, the fee varies in Bangalore from 1.5 lakhs to 12, 13 lakhs today,
15, 20 lakhs.
right? What if you make a rule that every government servant whose children qualify, you will give, you'll reserve 20% of the seats in the school for those kids. I'm just being absolutely random here, but let's say 25% of the seats go to these, children of higher government officials or whatever it is. You put out some metrics based on which they get their seats. You don't interfere in what the school charges the other private sector kids. There is enough money for everybody to be made.
Yeah, that's true.
What are you trying? How are you trying to solve this problem? Capping the fee that a private school can charge. Now, you cap the fee that a private school can charge. You're creating a second set of problems. Because it is expensive to run a school today, or a hospital. You take anything for that matter. If there is no corruption and there is more freedom in how you operate, there's a lot more that the schools and the colleges and the hospitals and the other enterprises can do for society. It just needs somebody who's smart, who works out the overall detail and takes some tough decisions.
Okay. So someone I really look up to once told me that we don't pay bribes to get ahead. We pay bribes to make sure we don't get left behind. Because in a lot of cases, if you're working with the government especially, unless and until you pay them, if everything is right, your documents are right, you're doing everything legally, but still they just won't, unless and until you bribe them, they won't pass your order. They won't give the tender to you.
It's not just tender, right? It's also about approvals, licenses.
Yeah,
See,
all of
corruption is looked at in two ways. Have I done something wrong and I pay to get away from it? The other is speed money.
Yeah.
Where I just pay so that I get my approval on time.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting a favor. I'm not expecting any. If the law says 30 days, give to me in 30 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Ultimately, it's if you pick up specific issues like that, you are only looking at the problem from one aspect. You need to have holistic solutions around these things.
That makes sense.
Okay. So let's talk about the Adani issue. What's your opinion on this case?
See, it's another similar to RG Car, right? They've already been found guilty, so to speak, right? And why has this arisen? Because it's a company that has grown so quickly, so large. See, there's one thing about the Adani story. Look at the influence it has created for you outside India as an enterprise. It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Why is China so powerful and strong in the world today? Because of the amount of investments they have made in various countries, controlling, raw materials, the One Belt, One Road program.
Yeah.
There's so much influence they managed to create for themselves with the amount of investments they have made. US has had, US has had this, its own corporations, whether it's the Facebooks or the Googles or the, any of these companies. They have created influence for the US around the world. India was in that unfortunate position where the government companies, because of all the bureaucratic, situation, we were not able to do anything outside India. Adani's actually created so much influence for us outside India as an enterprise,
Yeah.
right? Now, whether there is corruption, whether there's been favors made in deal making, that requires a serious investigation.
Okay.
Okay, and definitely that investigation is called for and it is warranted and it must be done. And if there's serious corruption, yes, you need to, or if there's corruption, not just serious corruption,
Yeah.
there must be a price to be paid. But let's not forget the good they've done for the country as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
They have mines in Iran, in Sri Lanka, in Australia. Look at the influence they've created. See what Airtel has done. They're among the dominant players in Africa. See, one thing which the Indian government has tried to encourage is these corporations creating influence for you outside India.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? If you depend on foreign exchange only as inflows in FDI, it's not good enough. The Indian economy needs to invest outside India. And it is only these corporations who are capable of doing it. Imagine a government company fighting on the ground for a tender in Timbuktu. You're not going to win it.
Okay.
Right? How are you going to create influence in these countries for yourself?
Yeah, makes
The
sense.
only way to do it is private sector.
Private sector,
And some of these guys have actually managed to do it for you now.
Okay.
Let's not forget the good that has happened. Having said that, a serious investigation is needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to depend on what a hedge fund sitting in New York or in Luxembourg or
Not to
London
say, yeah.
says.
Yeah.
There is there's probably truth in what they say. There probably is no truth. There's probably some truth. There's probably the whole truth. Only an investigation will tell you that.
Correct.
Okay. So what would drive a established corporation like Adani? We'll just do that. Yeah. So what would drive a corporate?
Corporate.
Yeah. What would drive a corporate like Adani to get into such things? Like they have been charged of stock manipulation, stock inflation, then offshore accounts, fake transactions, bribing the chairmen of SEBI.
Again,
So what would I establish?
allegedly.
Yeah. Allegedly.
It's all alleged, right?
Yeah.
Okay. See, first thing is these offshore accounts. Where is this hedge fund getting information from?
Correct.
They are not getting information by paying money to some government official in these foreign countries and pulling data out. Every single piece of information is from public records.
Yeah.
So it's not that Adani's information is hidden. It's all out in the open.
It has to be.
It has
Yeah,
to be,
that's
right?
the public limited
And
company,
that's how they have access to that information.
Yeah.
Now, is there a violation in the way they have moved money around? Of course, that needs to be investigated, and it should be, right? But don't jump to the conclusion
jump,
that
yeah.
even the SEBI chairman.
Yeah.
I think it's a little it's so unfair
Yeah.
that there is so much of mud being thrown at her today in the way things are going on. I can tell you my own personal experience. When we set up our fund, it normally takes a long time to get these approvals. Our fund got approved in 30 days.
Yeah.
We filed our application.
Yeah.
20 days later, we got an email saying, please clarify these 3-4 things. 20 or 22 or 23 days later, we sent an email response back.
Yeah.
We got another email, we answered it, and boom, our approval came. We didn't speak to a single SEBI official. We didn't pay a single piece of bribe anywhere to get this approval. And this kind of organization has come only because of the current chairman. So at this moment, everybody is talking about her alleged investment into the Adani group.
Okay.
She was a private individual.
Yeah.
She says she's disclosed everything. Investigate it. If she's properly disclosed everything, it's not wrong for you to have an offshore account.
Yeah.
There are ways and means in which RBI allows you to send money outside India. She says she's done everything by the book.
You can't just speculate.
You can't
have
just
to
speculate that,
thoroughly
there is
investigate.
corruption here.
Don't jump to conclusions.
There's no need to jump to conclusions here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? And what is the second allegation? That the SEBI officials are being asked to work very hard. Now, is there truth in that statement? Maybe there is. Somebody needs to investigate it. But if the private sector expects the government officials to work hard, that is not unfair. The question is whether they're being overly burdened or not. If they're not being overly burdened, but they're doing 3x the work that they were doing earlier, is that really wrong? I don't think so. At least the system is working now, no? Because people are working and disposing of files and they're responding to emails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, this is just another, case where the media is already having multiple opinions and investigation is of course needed. If there is corruption, there is a price to pay. If there is no corruption, then let go of the person.
Okay.
Okay.
So, to what extent does black money circulation in India is affecting the corporate world? Because a lot of transactions in India happen in cash and offshore accounts.
See, the cash happens. It's not just corporate world. There's cash everywhere.
Yeah.
In the corporate world, it's probably way lesser than the
Politicians.
It's politicians, individuals, real estate, mining. These are sectors where a lot of cash
Yeah.
gets generated.
Yeah.
Private sector doesn't have so much cash, and one of the things which has destroyed the cash in the system is GST. Because of GST, the amount of cash is substantially reduced.
Okay.
Okay, so what happens is, every transaction is recorded and, taxes are paid on that, right? What the GST system does is, let's say you were dealing with cash.
Yeah.
Okay, you were not giving me bills earlier.
Yeah.
I didn't care. But now, if I have to get input credits, this transaction has to be recorded.
Yeah. And then has a TDS charge on
There has
it.
to be a TDS is done on it, GST is paid on it. I get the credit of this GST now.
Yeah.
Earlier, what was happening was, it's now a value-added tax, right? So you sell something to me at 100 rupees, and I pay 6 rupees tax on that. I'm again just taking a random example.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, I add value on this 100 rupees, sell it for 150 rupees. Now the tax I have to pay is 9 rupees,
Yeah.
but I get the credit of the 6 rupees.
Yeah.
Now, if this transaction earlier was not a value-added tax, I didn't care whether I get that credit of 6 rupees or not.
Yeah.
So the GST system has actually substantially reduced corruption in the private sector.
Okay.
We still have a long way to go. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The amount of cash needs to reduce and needs to reduce substantially.
Okay.
But if you see it in absolute terms, the cash is very high. But if you look at cash as a percentage of your, GDP, that I'm fairly certain. I mean, I've not seen the data. It's probably lesser today than it was 30 years ago.
Okay. So this was like crazy, huge conversation. But now let's move on to the kind of fun personal questions, right? So, have you seen Suits, like the TV show?
I hardly see any Netflix series.
It's a TV
For the
show.
first time I started seeing a series was about 3-4 months ago.
Okay,
When
and
I started
which
seeing
one
Big
is
Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory. Yeah.
I'm not
Everyone's
much of
daughter.
a.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a.
You'll get into it when
TV
you have
person.
when your schedule's a bit free.
No, I love to read. I love to listen to music. It's not that I'm working
Oh.
all the time.
Yeah.
But for me, the fun is not television or
Yeah.
movies. A little bit of
Okay.
it is okay. I don't mind watching some movies, go to the theater, more because my wife likes to see it. But myself, I'm not so much of a TV or a.
Right. So you're a book reader. You're
I
a
read
book
more
one.
of books. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's like the best book you've read and that's helped you be what you are today?
And that you would want to recommend both of us.
Both of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, different phases of my life have been. I can't think of a single book which I can say has been
Yeah.
the single most dominant book. I read a lot of religion.
Bhagavad Gita.
Not the Gita. I've read a few of the Vedas. I read a lot of Swami Vivekananda's works, and Jiddu Krishnamurti. Then it's a lot of stuff like that I read
Okay.
today. But one book I would strongly recommend is one of my favorite books. Is this book called The Difficulty of Being Good.
The difficulty of being good. Okay.
Being Good. Okay, it's by this former this guy called Gurucharan Das.
Yeah.
He takes examples from the Mahabharata and explains
Real life
how
yeah.
A lot of times you're in a position where either way you decide somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just give you this example. I'm a high integrity guy. I'm running a big company. Now I have an existential question. If I don't pay a bribe, my business is going to get shut down.
Yeah.
Okay, I pay the bribe. I have 5,000 employees whose salaries depend on me.
Depending, yeah.
I have 500 subcontractors whose monthly business
Payments,
depends
yeah.
on me. Now, if I don't pay a bribe, everybody gets affected.
Yeah.
Now, the key to me in that situation is, what is my motivation?
Yeah.
Is my motivation the amount of wealth I'm going to make from this business and I pay the bribe? It's very different. but I'm paying the bribe because I want to, safeguard the interests of so many people.
Yeah.
The action is the same, but the intent is different.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
You will
Good line.
find that in so many situations on a day-to-day
That's true.
basis. You'll see conflict between your grandparents. You'll see conflict between your mother and her sister.
Yeah.
You have an opinion on who's right, but if you take a decision one way, you're going to hurt one person. You'll see conflict between your parents. You'll see conflict between your siblings. You're going to see conflicts all the time. You're going to see conflicts between co-workers. How do you resolve those conflicts? No matter which way you decide, somebody's going to get hurt.
So in such cases, how do you really like get out of it? Like, what do you think you should actually do here? Because either way, you're hurting someone.
You'll develop your own formula on this, Yuvraj.
Okay.
You will develop your own formula on what is the right thing to do in these situations.
Okay.
But again, the one advice I would give is don't develop a formula because every situation is unique.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
I'll-
you'll almost always come down to which one is more harmful,
Okay.
which one is causing greater damage,
Okay.
which one is causing damage to you versus damage to others.
Hmm.
So these are all questions you should ask yourself for, and you'll develop your own formula on this,
Yeah.
on how to address this issue. There's another book that I've started reading just now. It's about this guy called Humboldt. Very, very few people know about him, but he's probably among the 2-3 greatest scientists in the world.
Okay.
But there are so little known about him
Yeah.
in the mainstream world. You should read that book,
Okay.
the story of Humboldt.
Mm-hmm.
Even Charles Darwin has said, I was inspired by Humboldt,
Okay.
by his writings. He's traveled around, he's gone and climbed mountains in the Andes in days when you didn't have great equipment.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of these autobiographies are fabulous to read.
Okay.
This Humboldt is just, just another friend of mine who told me you should read about it. A kid who's like 19,
Yeah.
and he told me you should go and read this book. And I started reading it. It's absolutely fabulous.
We should read. 19 years old. That's not very far from where we are right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
No, but read this book.
Okay.
He's probably one of the greatest scientists in the last 2,000 years.
Yeah.
But very little is known about him. But if you read this book, you'll be amazed about how much of modern science has learned from him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So you founded IndusLaw. Then you have another success from RuleZero.
It's not successful yet.
Yet.
Working on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then quite a lot of other things that you're involved in, right? I think you're the perfect person for someone like us, aspiring entrepreneurs, to come up to and ask you for advice.
Yeah.
So tell the viewers, tell the aspiring entrepreneurs out there, and tell us as well, what advice would you give us?
So 2-3 things I would say, 2-3 rules that I've lived by. One is I don't care too much about what the other person has made. I'm very focused on what I am getting out of it. Second, I don't like to be in the limelight. I'd rather be behind the scenes. That's my personality.
Yeah.
Okay. The third is find people who compliment you. A lot of entrepreneurs end up making the mistake of saying, okay, this guy thinks like me. You don't want somebody who thinks like you. You want somebody who thinks differently, and you want to find a way to find a way to convince each other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And have a rule of thumb that let's say 3 of us co-found a business, but 3
Yeah.
of us need to have different skills,
Yeah.
need to be different personality types.
Correct.
I need to be somebody I'm just taking an example here. I'm somebody who will crack the whip and get things done.
Yeah.
You are the ideas guy. He's the guy who's keeping harmony among everybody, being nice to people, giving flowers everywhere,
That.
wishing people on their birthdays.
Yeah.
You need the combination of the 3 of us.
To
I'm an
complement.
aggressive risk
Yeah.
taker. You are more an analytical thinker. He's somebody who's very, humane in the way he approaches.
Yeah.
The thing is, the 3 of us need to convince each other. But once we make a decision, we have to, even if, let's say, I have an idea, but 2 of you veto the idea, and we go to a third idea. I need to put my weight behind that idea as if it's mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing a lot of people, the ego of, proving you wrong almost becomes more important than the success of the
Yeah.
business. You'll see a lot of companies go down just on that.
From ego.
From ego. You are free to disagree with anything, but you have to commit to the decision that is made,
Okay.
irrespective of how that decision was made. I was reading this article, or rather, a friend of mine was telling me about it. When you're in a very, very tough situation and you don't know A versus B, toss a coin. Don't overthink it, because if you're smart enough, if it's so complex that A versus B is difficult choice to make, that means neither of them are really stupid or bad options, right?
Yeah.
So toss a coin and
Toss a
then
coin
go
and-
after it.
okay.
Now, once you're able to execute hard on the decision that has been made, all that you're doing is committing to a decision that has been made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Disagree but commit.
Disagree but commit. Okay. So this entire thing you just said, sum those 2 points up in 2 lines.
I'll make it 3 lines.
Okay.
One is disagree but commit.
Yeah.
Second is find complementarity rather
Yeah.
than similarity. The third is focus on the larger outcome.
Yeah.
Then don't bother if somebody undeserving made something out of it.
Okay.
That's not your problem to solve. The universe has decided that something has to go to somebody. You have to get less. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you so much for your time.
It was great fun, guys. Like
Yeah.
I said, fabulous job you guys are
Yeah.
doing. Keep at it.
Yeah.
You guys are going to learn so much by talking to all these people.
Yeah.
You'll hear so many stories, so many perspectives. I think it's absolutely fabulous for the two of you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I'm willing to guarantee that you'll do some fun things in life.
Okay.
You'll do
I
some
think
interesting
personally,
things in
both
life.
of us have learned a lot from this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people who'll be watching this podcast will learn a lot as
yeah.
well.
This is one of the most entertaining podcasts we've ever done.
Yeah.
Huge. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on,
Yeah.
giving us your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Srinivas.
Thank you. Thank you.